Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to our webinar today. We're excited to have Ross Bottorf from Innovia Consulting with us. Ross will be presenting on how to create a control add-in for Business Central. And before I pass it over to Ross to cover on this topic, I just want to remind you that this session is being recorded and it will be posted to our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to type those into the questions box and we will get them answered during our Q&A time at the end of our session. So now I will pass it on to Ross to kick off our presentation.
Hi everyone, I'm Ross Bottorf, and today we'll be going over how to create a control add-in in BC. And just a little bit about myself. I started developing in Division in '95. I went through the various name changes to Dynamics NAV, now Business Central. The prerequisites for today. Basically, your Dynamics 365 Business Central environment. Maybe you have on-prem, maybe you're working in SaaS. What we'll be covering today should work in both. You will need Visual Studio Code with your AL language extension installed and some basic knowledge of AL development and some JavaScript. And I say some because I'm not a JavaScript developer. If I'm tasked to do anything in it, of course I go to various websites and get the examples that I need and put them into whatever I might need, and did that today for today's control. Okay. Now regarding your control add-in, so you will need some JavaScript files, and you can create those ahead of time. And again, one is to initialize your control add-in, and another one is to actually contain your JavaScript code that does all the work. Okay, there is going to be a startup file. You will want to give it an init function. And then there's going to be your control add-in JavaScript file. It will also need an init function, and it will need the methods that you're going to use to communicate back and forth between Business Central and the control add-in. And we'll go over that in more detail in a little bit. I'll actually show you the code that I have. Here's just here's a screen pic. So there's your init function. It's calling the various other functions that I have, like I've got my JavaScript class, so to speak. It's calling an init function, and I'm gonna raise an event. These events will be, we'll discuss these events. You'll notice that the raise add-in ready function is calling a Microsoft Dynamics Nav invoke extensibility method. Add-in ready, that is something that I did not create. That's something that the framework recognizes as the way to communicate to Business Central. And that add-in ready is the function name that I gave in Business Central to invoke. Okay, and then you add your JavaScript files to your project in AL. I put them in a source folder, actually a .scripts folder, so I can find them in my project. I keep it separated from my AL files, and I'll show you that file structure in a bit. Okay, style sheets. You can use style sheets. I recommend them. They will help you make your control prettier. Just a heads up on that. I wasn't able to find a Microsoft version or source for Microsoft styles that they use in Business Central. I did reference a page that was created by them. They gave you recommendations on the actual font styles and the colors, but they aren't colors or fonts, they aren't colors or schemes that actually match their own. It looks well with theirs, but they give you some leeway with that on the recommendations. And I sort of recommend using your own. That way your controls will stick out from actual Microsoft controls. So there is a control add-in object in Visual Studio Code. It's like a page object, table, got your report objects, code units, queries, XML ports. You also have a control add-in. And if you've done C# programming or any programming in Java, there's something called an interface. The control add-in is not an interface, but I think of it as one because you have to list your methods that are going to be in your JavaScript file. That's how Business Central is going to know what to do with your JavaScript file. It's going to see a method that you've designed in your control add-in, and it's going to look in your JavaScript file and run that JavaScript for that function. In the control add-in, you also need to specify where your script files are placed in your project. You give the path and also where your startup script is and any style sheets that apply. There are some properties that for my test, I went ahead and there were 4 properties that I needed to worry about to get my control add-in to work well. And it's the requested height, requested width, horizontal stretch, and vertical stretch. And depending on what you're trying to do with your control add-in, there might be other properties you need to concern yourself with. But those are all I needed to worry about for mine. And a little bit history about the control add-in that we're going to go over today. So I was on a call with the customer, and they wanted to know if we could put in a text box in Business Central that would format a credit card number in a friendly manner for the user, like put a space or a dash between each group of 4 characters. So you have your 4 numbers, then a space, then your 4 numbers, and a space, 4 numbers, space. And Business Central doesn't do that by itself. There's no property to set within Business Central, but you can do it with a control add-in. So that's where I started looking into control add-ins. And that's basically the example that I'll be giving today. What I think you'll be able to take from it is just the basic structure of how to create your own control add-in and design it to do what you need it to do. All right, so here's a screen pic of the control add-in. And I don't have any code for my add-in ready event or my get raw credit card number event or my get masked credit card number. There's no code there. The properties have been set: requested height, requested width, vertical stretch, horizontal stretch, and my scripts paths. You'll notice that I separated the 2 scripts with a comma. So your control add-in can reference multiple scripts, and just like in web development, you can have it set up to reference multiple scripts, and your web page will know about both of them. They'll know about the functions in your scripts, and this does the same thing. So I've got a credit card number add-in JavaScript, and I've got a cleave library. So I didn't write my JavaScript to put in the 4 number to put in the space between the 4 numbers in a Visa number, or format it to be put a space in the right places for a discover card. I just downloaded a Cleave.js library from the internet, and I was able to use that in my code. All right, so we've made our JavaScript, we've made our control add-in, and now we actually want to use it in a Business Central page. You know, maybe your add-in is going to be a fact box, maybe it's a control like mine. So you need to consume it in your actual Business Central object. So there's a user control object that you can add to your page. It's a control add-in, but when you're adding it to your page, they call it user control. And you'll note that there is a global variable that you should set to let them know when the add-in is ready. If your code is dependent on that add-in being at a certain state, then you need to tell the system when to use it. Otherwise, you'll be referencing the object before it's done, possibly populating or performing its functions before it can give you back the information you need. Right. And here's the pic of the page where I'm using it. There's my user control. I've named it credit card number control. And to the right is the actual object itself, the INVC credit card number add-in. On the events, it's a trigger, just like you would reference a trigger from your tables, like if you were going to do a trigger on insert or a trigger on modify. I'm doing a trigger add-in ready. That's the function that I named in my control add-in, the event, I mean, and I added code here. So this is where I added code for my add-in ready event. I'm setting my global variable add-in ready equals true, and I'm executing some code to write to that control add-in. And you'll see get credit card number is another event. So when your JavaScript raises that event, it passes in the raw number, the raw credit card number without spaces, just the number itself, and passes it back to Business Central. And the mass credit card number is a way of, I could have put that logic in Business Central, but I wanted to use what was already available in my JavaScript libraries that I downloaded. So I'm using logic from my JavaScript to give me the masked credit card number. Now there were procedures in my control add-in. There was an init credit card number. And so I have some local procedures on my page itself to call those. So I've got my current page credit card number control, and it knows that I have a method called init credit card number where I pass a credit card number. And it's a value coming from Business Central, passing it to my control add-in. And then I've got another local procedures, save profile variables. And here I'm calling the credit card number control mask credit card number. Now, there is the style guide that I used. That is available to you. It is the one that I talked about earlier, which it isn't Microsoft's own style. It's just their recommendations. There are some walkthroughs that you can use I recommend that you look at those. There's a walkthrough where you can add a signature control to your pages, and that's where I started. I was going through that. All right, so now let me get to my code. Basically, it's what you saw already in the pics, but I'll explain it a little bit more with the AL. All right, so here's my scripts. This is the library that I downloaded, Cleave.js. I just put it into my scripts folder, I believe as is. Got my credit card number add-in JavaScript. This is where I have all my code that references the Cleave.js. But this is where I've added my own JavaScript code. And you'll notice at the top, I've got my events, raise add-in ready, raise get raw credit card number, get mask credit card number, init credit card number, mask credit card number. You can mask the credit card number from Business Central or tell it to when I'm ready. Here's where I have my actual JavaScript class, so to speak, and I initialize the variables, start creating the buttons, the actual, not the buttons, but the text control. I start adding my properties, assigning events to it. So depending on how much knowledge you have of JavaScript, you can do quite a bit with your control add-in. My start.js is over here, just has the init function. Now, I'm wondering if I really need to start JS and the credit card number add-in, or if it's just something that I got from various walkthroughs that did different things, but I've kept it. Okay, here's my style sheets. And these came from the recommended styles that Microsoft has on their web page. That's included in the PowerPoint. I did stray a little bit to make it where, you know, I picked some colors that I liked. And here is my let's go to my source. So here's my objects. Here's my control add-in. We already had a screen pick of this. It's basically nothing extra to add here. It's really just the method stubs. I've got some page extensions. Got a customer card page extension and a customer list page extension, so I can bring up my credit card numbers from those. Got my credit card page that actually has the control add-in along with regular controls, regular text boxes, regular buttons, and regular groups. And here's my list page that lets me launch the credit cards. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to the web page. Go to Business Central. So here's my customer list, and I'm going to bring up the customer credit cards. I'm going to go to one that's already been created and masked. And my control add-in is the gold text box right here. So you can get very fancy with your style sheets. You'll notice that when I hover over the customer number up above, a value actually shows up. When I click in it, I've got a color scheme around the border. When I hover over the customer name, I've got some instructional text. And when I hover to the right, the name field is just a regular text box from Business Central. And, it follows the Business Central style sheets. That is not something I can duplicate. I don't know CSS that well. I just go in and try and make it pretty. But mine, you'll notice that it doesn't do exactly the same thing that Microsoft does. All right. And you will notice it's pre-populated with the data from Business Central. So Business Central communicated with my control add-in and sent it some information, and it's displaying right now in my control add-in. All right, let's create a new one. And start with a 4, we'll make it Visa. And you'll notice that we've got spaces between every 4 characters. That's the JavaScript. And it's in my control add-in right now. It's not in Business Central. I've got my JavaScript written though to communicate back to Business Central when I click out of the box. And I'm entering information right now into Business Central controls that are not the control add-in. And I'm going to update my record. Come back. And here's my new record with my mass credit card number. And if I were to open that up again, it's passed back the values to my page. So I've got my Business Central data and I've got my control add-in data. All right. Let me go ahead and let's talk about that style sheet really quick. So let's go to my bookmarks. So here's your control add-in style guide. It'll let you know what colors Microsoft recommends. And you'll notice it doesn't really give you their style sheets. But I found it to be useful. You can get the fonts to look like Microsoft's, the weight. So, any questions?
Thank you, Ross. If anybody does have any questions, please feel free to type those into the questions box so that Ross can address those for you. We don't have any currently that have come through yet. We'll just give it a few moments. While we're waiting for some questions to come through, I just want to announce to everyone about our annual customer conference that's coming up on May 21st. Due to COVID-19, we will be moving to a virtual conference. So contact your rep or you can visit our conference page where we have all the details for our virtual conference. And that website address is innovia.com/conferences. This is a free event to attend. virtually. And if you have anybody in your company or friends, colleagues that were interested in actually attending but couldn't due to travel, now's the perfect opportunity for you to take part and attend in our conference. So we would like to have you register so you don't miss out on this great event. All right, Ross, I don't think we have any questions that came through at this time, but if anybody has any future questions, you can contact your rep at Innovia Consulting, or if you want, you can contact Ross. I believe he has his information on the next slide here. Yep, there we go. Well, thank you, Ross, for presenting today. You did a very good job, as one of our attendees stated in the questions box. So thank you for presenting. Thank you, John, for pointing that out.
You're welcome.
And thank you to everybody on today's webinar, or if you're watching on demand, we thank you for joining us. I do want to let you know that we do have some more webinars coming soon. Tomorrow we have Warwick Leach from Columo, and he's going to be presenting on pinpoint forecasting with Columo AI. And then on Thursday this week, we have Aaron Strahan from Jet Global, and he's going to be presenting on Achieve Total Data Access and Future-Proof Your Reporting. So check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's innovia.com/events. If you have not heard, we do have a podcast that is going on. It's called the Innovia Conversation. And we just want to encourage you to listen to our selection that Steve Waltz and Jeff Progolski have provided to us over the last year. They do about 2 episodes a month, and you can find out about all the different podcast platforms to listen to on our podcast page, and that's innovia.com/podcast. So check out the selection and subscribe so you'll be notified when those new episodes air. All right, well, Ross, thank you again for presenting, and to everyone joining us, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on another Innovia webinar. Have a great day,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.